Have you ever found yourself standing at a crossroads in your life, desperately looking up at the sky, pleading for just one clear sign from God, only to be met with what feels like deafening silence? Perhaps you've whispered prayers into the darkness of your bedroom, asking with all your heart for divine guidance on which path to take, which door to walk through, which decision to make, and yet the answer you're seeking never seems to come. If you've ever felt this crushing weight of spiritual abandonment during your most critical moments, you need to hear what I'm about to share with you today. Here's the truth that most of us have never been told. We've been searching for God's voice in all the wrong places our entire lives. From the time we were children sitting in church pews, we've been conditioned to believe that divine guidance comes from somewhere out there, from the heavens above, from ancient scriptures, from spiritual authorities, or through elaborate rituals and ceremonies that require perfect execution. We've learned to treat God's wisdom as something external, something distant, something we must reach for with tremendous effort and strain. Has this ever happened to you? You face a life-altering decision about your career, a complicated relationship situation, a financial crisis, or a health concern that keeps you awake at night, and suddenly, you find yourself feeling spiritually paralyzed, unable to move forward because you're waiting for some external confirmation that just doesn't arrive. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. The tragedy isn't that God isn't speaking to you. The real tragedy is that we've forgotten how to listen to the voice that's been speaking within us all along. Think about the last major decision that kept you up at night, tossing and turning with anxiety. Maybe it was whether to leave a job that was slowly draining your soul, whether to trust an opportunity that seemed too risky, or how to navigate a relationship that had become impossibly complicated. In those moments of crisis when you cried out for guidance, did you feel abandoned by the very source of wisdom you needed most? Did you wonder if perhaps you weren't spiritual enough, worthy enough, or good enough for God to answer your prayers? What if I told you that every single unanswered prayer, every moment of confusion, every decision where you felt utterly alone, all of it stems from one profound misunderstanding about where divine guidance actually lives? Stay with me until the end of this teaching, because what you're about to discover will fundamentally transform how you approach not just the major life-altering decisions, but every single choice you make throughout your day. The voice you've been seeking in the clouds, in religious buildings, in the words of spiritual leaders, it's been closer to you than your own heartbeat this entire time, and the reason you haven't heard it has nothing to do with your worthiness or God's willingness to guide you. The weight of this spiritual paralysis can be absolutely crushing. You stand there, frozen in the face of a decision that could change everything, and you feel completely disconnected from the very source of wisdom you need most. Your career is calling you toward a new direction, but you can't move because you're waiting for some cosmic green light. A relationship is demanding clarity from you, but you remain stuck because you haven't received that external validation you believe you need. Financial opportunities present themselves, yet you hesitate, desperately searching the skies for a sign that refuses to materialize. And in those moments, the silence feels like abandonment, doesn't it? You begin to question everything: your faith, your worthiness, your ability to hear divine guidance at all. But here's the hidden truth that changes absolutely everything. And I need you to really hear this, because it's the key that unlocks the transformation you've been seeking. The voice you've been straining to hear from somewhere out there has been whispering within your own consciousness this entire time. It's not distant. It's not playing hide and seek with you. It's not testing whether you can pray hard enough or be spiritual enough to finally deserve an answer. The divine guidance you're desperately seeking has been closer to you than your own heartbeat, more intimate than your own thoughts, speaking in a frequency you simply haven't learned to recognize yet. This is the revolutionary shift in understanding that most people never discover in their entire lifetime. We've been taught that the kingdom of heaven is a far-off place, somewhere we go after death if we live righteously enough. We've been conditioned to believe that divine wisdom requires us to transcend our human experience, to somehow escape ourselves and reach upward into the spiritual realm. But what if the entire journey has been backward? What if that place where perfect wisdom exists, where divine clarity flows without obstacle, where every answer you need already resides? What if it's not somewhere you need to travel to reach it all? What if it's already inside you right now, in this very moment, waiting only for your recognition? I create these videos for seekers who are ready to move beyond surface-level spirituality into genuine transformation. If this resonated with you, subscribe and join this community, learning to hear the divine voice in everyday decisions. The impact of this realization on your decision-making process is profound and immediate. Every choice you've struggled with, every crossroads where you felt abandoned, every moment of confusion, all of it stems from looking outward for something that was always inward. The transformation in how you experience guidance doesn't require you to become someone different or achieve some elevated spiritual status. It begins with a simple shift in awareness, a turning of attention from the external search to the internal presence that's been broadcasting wisdom all along. Now, I want to go even deeper into what makes this understanding so radically different from everything you've tried before, because the journey of discovering your inner voice isn't just about finding answers to specific questions. It's about fundamentally reshaping your relationship with divine wisdom itself and understanding the practical steps that allow this internal guidance to become crystal clear in every area of your life. Behind the scenes of every person who seems to navigate life with unusual clarity and peace is this exact shift in consciousness. They've stopped searching for God's voice in the heavens and started recognizing it in the quiet whisper of their own awareness. If you're beginning to sense that there might be a completely different way to access divine guidance, one that doesn't leave you feeling abandoned or spiritually paralyzed, write in the comments, "The voice is within me." What I'm about to share with you might completely transform how you experience divine guidance in your everyday life, and it's simpler than you've ever imagined. The shift that allows you to hear that inner voice clearly doesn't require you to carve out extra hours from your already overwhelming schedule. You don't need to wake up at 4 in the morning for lengthy meditation sessions or retreat to a monastery for weeks of silent contemplation. The transformation happens through what I call 5 daily alignments, micro shifts in awareness that are so subtle, so natural, that they can occur while you're sitting in traffic, standing in line at the grocery store, or lying in bed just before sleep. These aren't complicated rituals that demand perfection or spiritual expertise. They're simple adjustments in perception that reconnect you with the wisdom that's been broadcasting within you all along. Think of it like tuning a radio. The station is already transmitting. The signal is already in the air around you. But until you adjust the dial to the right frequency, all you hear is static. That's exactly what these alignments do. They help you tune into the channel where divine guidance has been speaking this entire time. And here's where most people get everything backward, creating the very obstacle they're trying to overcome. We've been conditioned by our achievement-oriented culture to believe that hearing God's voice requires tremendous effort. Longer prayers, more intense devotion, stricter discipline, deeper sacrifice. We exhaust ourselves trying to become worthy enough, spiritual enough, pure enough to finally deserve divine guidance. But the hidden truth is this: the strain itself is the problem. The harder you try to grasp divine wisdom through sheer effort alone, the more you create internal noise that drowns out the very voice you're seeking. Think about this for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You're desperately trying to remember someone's name and it sits just out of reach in your memory. The more you strain and force it, pushing your mind to recall, the more elusive it becomes. But then, the moment you relax and stop pushing, suddenly the name surfaces effortlessly, naturally, as if it was there all along waiting for you to simply receive it. Divine guidance works exactly the same way. The consciousness within you isn't playing games, testing whether you can pray hard enough or meditate long enough to finally break through some invisible barrier. It's been broadcasting continuously, like a radio station that never goes off the air, transmitting on a frequency that becomes crystal clear the moment you stop straining and simply recognize what's already present. This first alignment is the foundation for everything else, and it represents a complete reversal of how we've been taught to approach spiritual matters. Instead of beginning from a place of spiritual anxiety, wondering if you've done enough to deserve clarity, you start from a foundation of trust that the guidance is already there, already speaking, already flowing through your consciousness. The impact of this single shift cannot be overstated. You're not trying to create something new or achieve some elevated state. You're simply removing the barriers to what has always been true. Now, understanding this principle intellectually is one thing, but experiencing it in the practical moments of your daily life is where the real transformation begins to take shape. The journey from concept to lived reality requires us to explore how this alignment actually functions in those critical moments when decisions press upon you with urgency and the noise of life threatens to drown out every whisper of wisdom. If this shift from effort to awareness resonates with something deep inside you, write in the comments, "I choose to receive, not strain." Your mornings hold a power that most people completely overlook, and I'm not talking about becoming one of those people who wakes up at dawn to spend an hour in elaborate spiritual routines. I'm talking about something far simpler, far more accessible, and honestly, far more powerful. Those first few seconds after you open your eyes, before your mind floods with the day's demands, before anxiety about pending decisions creeps in, before you reach for your phone and immerse yourself in everyone else's reality, that's sacred ground. In those precious moments, your consciousness is still quiet enough to establish the foundational frequency for everything that follows. This practice takes less time than checking your first text message. Before your feet touch the floor tomorrow morning, pause for just one breath and silently acknowledge this truth. The kingdom of heaven is within me right now, and divine guidance is my natural state of being. These aren't magical incantations or empty positive affirmations that you're hoping will trick the universe into giving you what you want. They're recognition statements that align your awareness with reality itself. You're not trying to create something new or summon something distant. You're simply acknowledging what's already true, tuning your consciousness to the frequency where divine wisdom has been broadcasting all along. What makes this morning practice so transformative isn't the words themselves. It's the shift in mindset they represent. You're establishing an anchor, a reference point, that becomes the lens through which you experience every interaction, every challenge, every choice that unfolds throughout your day. That meeting where you need to make a difficult decision, you enter it already grounded in divine wisdom. The conversation that usually triggers your reactive patterns, you approach it from a completely different foundation. The unexpected challenge that would normally send you spiraling into panic, you meet it with an inner stability that surprises even you. But here's what most people get completely wrong about spiritual practice, and it's costing them the very transformation they're seeking. We live in a culture obsessed with intensity, with dramatic breakthroughs and life-changing peak experiences. You've probably approached your spiritual journey the same way, waiting until you hit a crisis, then throwing yourself into hours of desperate prayer, hoping that sheer intensity will finally crack open the heavens and deliver the guidance you need. The hidden truth that changes everything is this: 5 minutes of gentle daily recognition will reshape how you hear divine guidance far more profoundly than occasional marathon sessions fueled by panic and fear. Your consciousness doesn't respond to dramatic overhauls the way our achievement culture suggests. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't ignore the plants for weeks and then dump gallons of water on them in a single desperate attempt at revival. That approach creates damage, not growth. You provide small amounts of consistent nourishment, and the garden naturally flourishes. Your ability to discern that inner voice works exactly the same way. Each time you pause to recognize the presence within, each morning you begin with that simple acknowledgement, you're making subtle adjustments to your spiritual receptors, gradually tuning yourself to divine frequency with increasing precision. Behind the scenes of every genuine transformation I've witnessed in my own life and in the lives of others, there's this consistent pattern that contradicts everything we've been taught about breakthrough moments. The people who experience the most profound shifts in their decision-making aren't the ones engaging in occasional intense spiritual episodes. They're the ones who show up with gentle consistency, day after day, making those small recognitions that compound over time into something genuinely life-changing. Now, this foundation of morning practice and consistent recognition creates the perfect conditions for what I consider to be one of the most practically powerful tools for hearing divine guidance in real time, especially in those moments when life doesn't give you the luxury of stepping away to meditate or pray. When decisions demand immediate attention and your old reactive patterns are fighting to take control. If you're beginning to see how these small daily practices could genuinely transform your relationship with divine guidance, write in the comments. Consistency is my new practice. Throughout any given day, you encounter dozens of decision points that either reinforce your old reactive patterns or create new pathways for divine wisdom to flow through. Your boss delivers criticism that normally would trigger immediate defensiveness. Traffic makes you late for an important meeting and panic starts flooding your system. An unexpected bill arrives in your inbox and financial anxiety grips your chest. A family member says something that hits every sensitive nerve you have. These moments happen so quickly that you barely register there's even a choice about how to respond. If you found value in what we explored together today, consider tapping that like button, not for algorithms, but as a quiet acknowledgement between us that this conversation mattered. But here's the revelation that changes everything about those split-second decision points. You have approximately 3 seconds before your conditioned responses take over completely. 3 seconds where you can insert awareness into situations that previously triggered automatic reactions. This is what I call the sacred pause, and it's perhaps the most practically powerful tool for hearing divine guidance in real time. Even 30 seconds of consciously returning to that inner kingdom creates space for divine clarity to emerge beyond the surface appearances of whatever challenge you're facing. You're not denying the reality of the situation or pretending difficulties don't exist. You're accessing a deeper dimension of wisdom that provides guidance your anxious, reactive mind simply cannot access when it's dominated by fear. The impact of this practice is gradual but profound. At first, you might only remember to pause after you've already reacted, recognizing in hindsight that another option was available. That's perfectly fine. That awareness itself is progress. Then you begin catching yourself mid-reaction, inserting consciousness into moments that used to unfold completely on autopilot. Eventually, and this is where the journey becomes truly remarkable, the pause starts feeling natural, almost instinctive, as your default setting shifts from reactive fear to receptive awareness. Now, this foundation of morning recognition and sacred pauses becomes especially critical when we face the two areas of life where fear most easily drowns out that inner voice, where our spiritual awareness can completely shut down in seconds if we're not careful. The first of these is when your body sends signals that trigger immediate panic. You notice an unusual symptom, a persistent pain, something that feels off in your physical experience. And within seconds, your mind spirals into worst-case scenarios. Your entire focus narrows exclusively to material solutions, researching symptoms online at 3 in the morning, scheduling appointments with increasing urgency, analyzing every physical sensation with mounting anxiety. In this state of health-related panic, something profound happens that you might not even notice. Your spiritual awareness completely shuts down. The connection to inner guidance that was available just moments before becomes inaccessible, drowned out by the noise of fear. 3. Decisions you make about your health from this consciousness are fundamentally different than those made from a place of peace and inner alignment. But here's the transformation that changes everything about health-related decisions. Before allowing panic to hijack your consciousness entirely, you can pause and turn within to recognize a deeper truth, that in the kingdom of heaven within you, there exists only wholeness and divine perfection. This isn't about denying physical reality or rejecting medical wisdom and proper care. It's about creating sacred space where the divine voice can speak clearly about your well-being, guiding you toward appropriate action from a foundation of peace rather than terror. The hidden truth behind healing that most people never discover is that wholeness exists first as a spiritual reality, and when your consciousness aligns with that truth, it creates pathways for well-being that remain completely blocked when fear dominates your awareness. Now, this same principle of pausing before panic takes over becomes equally crucial in the other major area, where financial concerns can silence divine guidance so quickly that you don't even realize you've lost access to inner wisdom until you're already making fear-based decisions that compound the very problems you're trying to solve. If you've experienced moments where pausing before reacting changed the outcome of a situation, write in the comments. The pause is my power. Financial concerns trigger something primal in us that activates survival instincts so intense, they create static that makes hearing the divine voice virtually impossible. You check your bank balance and feel your chest tighten. An unexpected expense arrives and panic floods your entire system. Your income suddenly decreases and you find yourself making desperate decisions from a place of scarcity and urgency that completely overrides any access to spiritual wisdom. Has this ever happened to you? You're lying awake at 3 in the morning, mind racing through worst-case scenarios, calculating and recalculating numbers that simply won't add up, feeling utterly disconnected from the very guidance you need most. This third alignment represents a fundamental shift from scarcity consciousness to recognizing abundance from the kingdom perspective. And I need you to understand that this isn't about positive thinking magically creating money or ignoring practical financial planning. It's about something far more profound. When you bring kingdom awareness to money decisions, you access divine intelligence that sees possibilities your anxious, scarcity-focused mind simply cannot perceive. Opportunities appear that weren't visible through the lens of fear. Creative solutions emerge that your panic-driven thinking never considered. The guidance you receive about earning, spending, and managing resources comes from a place of wisdom that transcends material circumstances. The hidden truth that transforms everything is the simple revelation: provision follows presence. When you're present to the divine consciousness within, when you're anchored in the awareness that the kingdom of heaven exists inside you right now, the flow of provision begins to move through different channels than when you're operating purely from survival fear. Picture yourself sitting at your kitchen table, bills spread out in front of you, and the numbers simply don't add up. Your old conditioned response would spiral immediately into catastrophizing, desperately strategizing, losing sleep over scenarios that haven't even happened yet. But when you've cultivated this kingdom consciousness, something fundamentally different occurs. You pause and recognize that divine intelligence sees possibilities that your anxious mind cannot access in this moment. You bring transformed awareness to the practical work of addressing the situation, allowing spiritual wisdom to inform material decisions, rather than letting material panic completely override your connection to inner guidance. And here's what surprises most people about this shift. It doesn't necessarily mean money magically appears or problems vanish without any effort on your part. The journey unfolds differently. Unexpected opportunities emerge that weren't visible through your previous lens of scarcity. A conversation happens that opens doors you didn't know existed. Creative solutions surface that your fear-driven thinking never considered. Someone reaches out with an offer at exactly the right moment. A skill you possess suddenly becomes valuable in ways you hadn't anticipated. Behind the scenes of what others might call financial breakthrough is simply consciousness, aligned with divine abundance expressing itself through practical circumstances in ways that logic alone could never predict or manufacture. The impact on your daily experience becomes tangible when you understand that you're not trying to manipulate the universe or force outcomes through spiritual techniques. You're simply removing the barriers of fear-based consciousness that block the natural flow of provision that wants to move through your life. Now, this same principle of aligning with kingdom consciousness, rather than reacting from fear, becomes equally transformative when we turn our attention to perhaps the most emotionally complex area of human experience, the realm where our deepest wounds and greatest longings intersect, where divine guidance can feel most elusive yet is most desperately needed. If you're beginning to see how shifting from scarcity to kingdom consciousness could transform your financial decisions, write in the comments. Provision flows through my presence. Think about your most challenging relationship right now. Maybe it's your spouse who seems to trigger every insecurity you have. Perhaps it's a parent whose approval you've been seeking your entire life, or a colleague whose behavior constantly sparks frustration and resentment. Your conditioned response focuses exclusively on what's wrong with them, how they need to change, why they're making your life difficult, what you wish they would finally understand. But here's the hidden truth that revolutionizes relational dynamics completely. The catalyst for relationship transformation isn't finding perfect people. or waiting for others to finally become who you want them to be. The fourth alignment happens when you shift from trying to control or fix relationships to developing perfect listening to the divine voice through every single interaction, even and especially the difficult ones. When you approach relationships from kingdom consciousness, you access guidance about how to respond rather than react, what to say in moments of tension, when to speak truth and when silence serves better, how to set boundaries from love rather than from fear or manipulation. This doesn't make relationship challenges magically disappear or turn difficult people into easy ones. Conflicts still arise, disappointments still occur, people still say hurtful things, but you're navigating these experiences from an entirely different foundation, one that allows revelations about yourself and others that remain completely hidden when you're operating purely from reactive patterns and emotional triggers. The decisions you make in relationships, whether to stay or leave, how to address issues, when to offer grace, and when to maintain boundaries, come from deeper guidance, rather than conditioned patterns of defense, attack, or withdrawal. The impact of this shift extends far beyond individual relationships to transform how you experience human connection itself. Now, this same principle of bringing kingdom consciousness into areas we typically consider purely material applies powerfully to where most of us spend the majority of our waking hours. For most people, their professional environment represents a complete spiritual dead zone, where divine presence seems distant, irrelevant, or entirely disconnected from the practical demands of getting work done. The pressure of deadlines, office politics, performance expectations, and competition create such a dense frequency of stress that any awareness of inner guidance gets completely drowned out. You might acknowledge divine presence before leaving for work, but the moment you step into that office or log into that computer, it's as if you've entered a realm where spiritual wisdom simply doesn't apply. But here's the transformation that revolutionizes how you experience those 40, 50, 60 hours each week. The fifth alignment happens when you reframe work from mere employment, from something you endure to pay bills, into spiritual expression itself. That project deadline that usually triggers anxiety becomes an opportunity to witness divine ideas emerging through you in perfect timing. That difficult colleague who normally sparks immediate frustration becomes a chance to perceive the kingdom within both yourself and them, accessing wisdom about how to navigate the dynamic rather than just react to their behavior. This shift doesn't require changing careers or finding spiritually oriented employment. It happens through bringing presence to whatever work you're already doing, recognizing that divine creativity can express itself through spreadsheets and sales calls just as readily as through traditionally spiritual activities. The journey transforms not just what you accomplish, but the actual quality of your daily experience, as solutions begin flowing naturally when your consciousness isn't constricted by stress and fear. Now, as this kingdom consciousness matures through your consistent practice of these alignments, something emerges that goes beyond any specific benefit in health, finances, relationships, or career. Something that becomes the foundation for every decision you'll ever make, and fundamentally changes how you experience life itself. If you're starting to see how every area of your life could become spiritual practice, write in the comments. All of life is sacred ground. What emerges through your consistent practice of these 5 alignments is something precious that goes beyond any specific benefit in health, finances, relationships, or career. You awaken to an authentic peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect, on everything going your way, or on finally having all your problems solved. This isn't the artificial calm that comes from temporarily having everything under control. It's a foundational frequency of tranquility that transcends whatever situation you're facing, becoming the very ground from which all your decisions arise. Financial setbacks still require practical action and wise decision-making, but you navigate them without the paralysis of fear that used to shut down your ability to think clearly. Relationship difficulties still need to be addressed, conversations still need to happen, boundaries still need setting, but you approach them without the emotional reactivity that used to make everything more complicated and painful. The hidden truth here is profound and often missed. When you position yourself to hear the divine voice clearly through these daily alignments, what you discover isn't just guidance about specific decisions, though that certainly flows more readily. What emerges is something deeper, an unshakable foundation that remains steady regardless of external conditions. This peace becomes the lens through which you perceive challenges, the anchor that holds you steady when life storms inevitably arrive. Behind the scenes of people who seem to navigate life's chaos with unusual grace and clarity is often this exact dynamic. They've cultivated an inner sanctuary that external circumstances simply cannot touch, and from that place of deep tranquility, wisdom flows naturally into every decision they face. Now, I want to be completely honest with you about what this journey actually demands, because you deserve to hear the truth. The pathway to hearing divine guidance in every decision requires consistent commitment regardless of immediate results. This isn't a weekend workshop that produces instant enlightenment or a 21-day challenge that permanently transforms your awareness. The transformation unfolds through those small, repeated recognitions we've been exploring, gradually reshaping your consciousness through accumulated practice rather than through a single dramatic breakthrough. Some people begin these 5 daily alignments and experience remarkable shifts within weeks, suddenly finding clarity in decisions that used to paralyze them. Others practice diligently for months before significant changes become visible in their experience. The decisive factor isn't spiritual talent or divine favoritism, it's simple persistence, the willingness to continue recognizing the presence within, even when immediate evidence doesn't scream validation. But here's perhaps the most liberating truth of this entire teaching, something that removes every excuse and eliminates every barrier between where you are right now and the guidance you're seeking. You can begin this very moment exactly where you are with whatever understanding you currently possess. You don't need to master complex theology first. You don't need years of meditation experience or advanced spiritual credentials. You don't need to become someone different or achieve some elevated status before you're qualified to hear the divine voice. The kingdom of heaven exists within you right now at this very moment, exactly as you are. Even 3 seconds of genuine acknowledgement creates space for divine clarity to emerge through whatever decision you're facing. Your ability to hear divine guidance isn't something you need to build through years of arduous effort. It's something you simply recognize as already complete within your consciousness. The recognition doesn't create the connection. It reveals what has always been present, always been speaking, always been available to you. This means the profound shift in how you make decisions can literally begin with your very next breath, with the very next choice point you encounter today. Now, understanding all of this intellectually is valuable, but the real transformation happens when you take what you've learned here and begin applying it to the actual fabric of your daily life, discovering through direct experience what it means to live from this inner guidance rather than just knowing about it conceptually. If you're ready to begin this journey right now, exactly where you are, without waiting for perfect conditions, write in the comments, "I begin today." If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, you're exactly the kind of person this message was meant to reach. There's something in you that's already awakening to these truths, already recognizing the divine presence that's been speaking within you all along. That recognition brought you here, and it's going to continue guiding you forward in ways you can't even imagine yet. I create these videos for people like you, seekers who are ready to move beyond surface-level spirituality into genuine transformation, into actually hearing that inner voice in the practical, everyday decisions that shape your life. If this teaching resonated with something deep inside you, if even one insight shifted your awareness, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this community of people who are learning to live from kingdom consciousness. Each video we explore together translates profound spiritual truths into steps you can actually implement today, not someday, when you're more ready or more spiritual. If this message felt like it was speaking directly to your heart, if you sense that you were meant to hear this today, write in the comments, "This message was meant for me." Your story, your journey, your recognition might be exactly what another person needs to see to begin their own awakening. There's real power in acknowledging these truths, even if it's just through a few typed words. And if you found value in what we explored together today, if this conversation created even a small shift in how you understand divine guidance, consider tapping that like button, not for algorithms or numbers, but as a quiet acknowledgement between us that this conversation mattered, that these truths still have power to transform lives in our distracted, anxious world. There's a video right here about maintaining this connection to divine guidance even when life gets overwhelming, when circumstances seem to contradict everything we've discussed today. It's a natural continuation of this journey, showing you how to sustain this awareness through the challenges that inevitably arise. Click and continue with me over there as we go deeper into living from this consciousness. Until we meet again, remember, the kingdom of heaven is within you right now, and the divine voice is already speaking. You're simply learning to recognize what has always been true.